Hello everyone, welcome to the Understanding JavaScript course. Your go-to guide on mastering one of the most versatile and the most used programming languages in the world. I am Chidumen Namdi, your instructor and guide on this exciting journey into the world of JavaScript. Whether you are an advanced user looking to upgrade your skills or you're a beginner looking for a place to start, this course is the right place for you.
In this lesson, we'll be looking at the delete operator in JavaScript. So for this lesson, we'll be using my article on it. I wrote an article understanding the delete operator in JavaScript. We'll be using it as a guide in this lesson. So let's dive in straight to what the delete operator is. The delete operator in JavaScript, according to the ECMA specification, is used to remove a specific property of an object. Let's look at what an object is. An object in JavaScript is written like this or looks like this. So the properties of an object is separated by a semicolon. They are key value pairs separated by a semicolon. The left hand side is the property, while the right hand side is the value of the property. The value of the property can be of any data type, string, boolean, object, array, undefined, null. It can be any primitive value in JavaScript or object value in JavaScript. Now, to access a property, to access the value of a property in JavaScript, we use the dot operator. Now, for example, let's access the value of age in this object. We'll use the dot operator, so it will be like this: user.age. With this statement, we are making use of the value of the age property, which is 30. So anywhere we write this, JavaScript, when compiling, we look it up in the object and replace it with the actual value, which is 30 there. To access name, we can do the same using the dot operator, but in this case, we'll now use the name property. So this will have access to our name, my name, Chidume, while this age will give us 30. Now, let's say we want to remove any of the property. For example, let's pick the age. We want to remove this property from the object. We can use the delete operator for that. Now, to delete this property, we first have to write the delete keyword. Mind you that the delete, this delete is a keyword, so you cannot have any variable with a name delete. So it's a reserved keyword in JavaScript. So we'll write delete, leave a space, then access the property in the object, and I will now write user.age. So what we are doing here in this statement is that we are telling JavaScript that we want to remove the age or property that is inside this user object. So this statement will remove it. So now to actually test that it works, let's first log the user object here. Then after that, we'll log the user. So in this case, we expect to find that the age property is still here. Then after the deletion here, we expect that we not find the age property here, that it's removed. So let's test it out. Let's run our script delete.js. So we'll do this. Now we can see in the first statement we have the age property there, but after that we can no longer see the age property there. So the delete has removed the age property there. It's no longer existent in the user object. We can also try accessing it down here. It will log undefined for us. Let's try it out. So you can see it's logging undefined for us here. So this is basically how the delete operator works in JavaScript. Now, let's try removing the name property. So let's remove this and first log the user. Then we'll do the same, remove the name property, user dot name, then log the object so as to know whether we can see it. Let's clear our console and run it again. Yeah. You see that in the first log, the name property was there. Then after the delete statement was run, is no longer there. We can no longer access it. So to verify it more, let's try accessing the name property. See, it's undefined. We cannot find it. So now let's try deleting the age and the name property at the same time. Let's remove the last console.log and try it again. Let's clear the console. Let's clear the console. So you can see in the first log, both properties were present, but after the execution of the line 8 and line 9, we no longer have any of the properties inside the object. So this is how the delete operator works. It removes that property from the object. It deletes it, it removes it, so we can no longer access or use it. Okay. The delete operator works only on configurable properties in an object. So the delete operator only deletes properties that are configurable. It cannot remove non-configurable properties. So non-configurable properties or configurable properties are property that has a property value in it. Like you can see, we can define, when defining a property, we can set optional values to it. So you can see that we have configurable defined to false when we are adding this property d to this object obj. So what it means that we are making this property d to become configurable, yeah, by using this. So this is telling us that the delete operator can only remove configurable object. So in this case, where this property d is set to be non-configurable, we cannot remove it using the delete operator. Now let's look closely at this. Whenever we define a property, whenever we define a property in an object, JavaScript by default gives it an open security by making it configurable, that it can be changed, it can be rewritten. So that's why we were able to delete the age and the name property. Now, to see whether a property is configurable or not, we have to log it, or we can access it using this get on property descriptor. So let's run this on our age property and also on our name property. So here we'll remove it with user and we now add age. So in this case, this get own property descriptor, like say you see, gets the own property descriptor of the specified object. And own object property descriptor is one that is defined directly on the object and is not inherited from the object's prototype. So this just get the property descriptor of this property age. So in the property descriptor, we have enumerable, configurable, and rewritten, writable, then the value of the property. So let's log this. Let's log this. Let's open our terminal. So you can see we have the property descriptor of the age property. The value 30, writable true means it can be changed. Enumerable means it's true, means it can be listed when logging the object user. Then configurable is set to true, which means it can be changed. The value can be changed. So that's why we were able to delete it using the delete operator, and it worked. So if this configurable is set to false, we cannot delete it using the delete operator. So now let's set age to be non-configurable, and we see what will happen. Then let's use this. We'll run this on it. Console.log object. Then we'll set configurable to false. So age will be non-configurable, so it cannot be deleted. So this delete will not work. And when we log console.user, the age property will still be there. Let's clear our console and try it out. Node delete. No, sorry. Let's change this to user. Try it out. So we can see we made it configurable. The first line, then the second line, see configurable is false. The age property is now non-configurable, so it cannot be deleted. So now line 10, we run the delete operation, and now we console log it. You can see the age was not deleted. It's still there, and we can also access it. So let's clear the console and run again. You can see we can access it 30. So configurable properties only works on delete operator. So in your application, if you notice that your delete keyword, the delete keyword is not working on a particular property in your object, then you have to make sure to verify that it is configurable before deleting. So we can actually have a function, an utility function for that. Like let's say delete property, then we'll have object, we'll have property as the parameters. Then we will now say we'll now run this first. We'll now use a copilot. Let's just do it on our own. Run this first. Say get the property descriptor. Get the property descriptor. Then we'll change it to property. Then this to object. Then we'll now check if the prop descriptor is configurable, then we can delete it. Then else can throw error, cannot be deleted. So this utility function can now help us to delete an operator, to delete a property in an object and throw error when it cannot be deleted. So in this case, we can now know that okay, that the property is configurable and cannot be deleted, so as to know what other options to take. So, some question has been asked: do the delete operator work on a function? Does it delete the function? The answer is clearly no. A function is a standalone well, JavaScript type. So the delete does not work on it. The delete operator from the specification states that the delete only works on the property of an object. Let's verify this. So we have a function. Let's say my function, and it out prints hello world. Let's run the delete on it, my function first. Let's call it, then after the deletion, we call it again. This my function prints out this hello world. So this is a standalone function. It is not a property of any object at all. So this works fine. It prints out the hello world. Then this actually runs, but it does not delete the my function at all, because my function is not a property at all. You understand? So it is not a property, so it does not work. This will run and log out, and also this will run because it can find my function. Why? Because it is not deleted. This didn't work on this because my function is not a property of any object. Let's verify this. Let's write node delete. It works. Now let's see a case whereby a function can be deleted. It can only be deleted if it is a property of an object. Let's see here. Sorry. You can see my function. Then let's remove this. So we have a user. We have a user object. We have a property whose value is a function. So we can delete this using the delete operator. So the delete operator works regardless of the value of the property. Whether this is an array, an object, a primitive value, boolean, string, number, integer, or anything, it removes it, provided that this property is configurable, like we have learned. So we can call the function user.myfunction, it runs. Then we can also now remove it with this. And when we call user.function, it will throw an error because it is no longer existing in the user object. Let's try it. You see it in the first log, in the first line 6, it runs. Then after that, it runs number 8, line 8, it removes the my function property from the object. Then after that, my function property is no longer available. So running this line 10 will throw an error, that this is a type error, that my function is not a function, or it is an undefined value. This is no longer existing. It now becomes an undefined value. So that's what we have to understand. Also, after this delete operator runs, the user object looks something like this inside JavaScript. My function is, the property is still existing, but the value is no longer there. The value is no longer there. We'll look at delete operator and its action in the global scope. So in JavaScript, the global scope is the general scope where variables defined in JavaScript are all stored. Now, when we run something like this, name, Now, this is attached. Okay, let's not use the name is deprecated. So let's use something like age. Now, we define the variable here without the varlet or the const keyword. So this attaches age to the global scope of JavaScript of this file or the instance of this. So, and this is it's gotten in the global scope here. So we can do global ah we can do global.age and we'll still get the value of the age. We can do age, we can still get the value. We'll also do global.age. We'll still get the value of age. So writing this code like this age, the JavaScript engine when compiling this will look for this age at the global scope. So the global scope is just like an object. So it's just like doing this. It's just like an object or it's an object. So doing this here is just like doing this. So when JavaScript sees this, it attaches it to the global scope in the JavaScript like this. So we can now access the property. So this becomes the property of the global scope. Like can now say global.age to get the value um, of the age property. So now let's test this out. Let's see. You see it. So we can this being like this, we can now delete a variable defined like this in JavaScript. So we can run something like this age and age is deleted from we can no longer access age becomes undefined here. So we can now run. So this is so because age is now is a property in the global scope. So this line 7 is just like doing this. Yes, because age is now a property and globe is now a property. But because it is like this, we can just easily remove the global and the dot operator and we can easily write it like this and it works. It works. So now let's see it. Let's clear here and now let's run it. So you can see in the first instance, we logged age, the value. Then after the delete and we try logging age again, we couldn't get it because it is no longer defined. So in conclusion, we can use delete operator in the global scope and it will work just very fine. Now let's look at delete action on non-existent properties. Non-existent properties are properties that does not exist in an object. Now let's say we have the user object and we have the age property there. Yeah, we can access the age object like this. Then if we try to access, let me say name, this name returns undefined. This name is an non-existing property in the user object. It does not exist. Now what happens if we by mistake uses tries to delete a non-existent properties on an object? What happens? So what happens is that it does not throw any error, it just returns true. It just returns true. It does not throw any error at all. So if we want to know what it returns, we can console log it, wrap it in a console log. and it just returns true. It does not throw error because it does not find uh, the property in the object, so it just returns true. So now, deleting using the operator or keyword in the prototype chain. Now, first, let's understand what is a prototype. In JavaScript, we have function. In a JavaScript, we have a function here. We use it to encompass similar statements. Now, in JavaScript, a function can be used as a function and also as a class or an object, like we have in JavaScript using a class. So a function in JavaScript functions as a function also, and also as an object. For example, now we have this full function. We can use it as a function and also use it as an object, as a class to create an object from it. Yeah. So creating an object from it, we use the new keyword. This works. This works now, but in this case, it's used as a function. But in this case, line 5 is used as a class, and this full object is its object. Now we can define variables in it. Like for example, we can define var1 90. Now this can only be seen while when using it as a function, but we cannot use it as a member variable with full object. Which we can't. Like for example, we can't do this. We can't do it. We can't do that at all. We can't do it. So it will. We can. It comes out as undefined because it does not exist at all. We can log it so as to be sure it does not. It logs undefined. Very good. So to to make a member variable, we can use this keyword. This keyword, and we can see it, and we can access it in the object. We can adjust. So this var2 now becomes a property of of the object of this full class in this case. So let's remove this for now. So how also we can also add properties to full to function classes by using the prototype object. Like for example, you can write function dot prototype dot var2 can add 200. So now this prototype is an object used to add properties to the function class when it will be used as a class. So whatever properties we define in this prototype object is visible in this full object, which is the object of the full class. So when we use the delete operator on the prototype chain, let's see what happens. Now we have the var2 here, and which we can access using the full object dot var1. Now in this case, full is an object, var1 is now a property. What happens when we use the delete keyword on it? Now what happens is that the var1 is deleted from the object, not from this function, from the object created from the function class. Let's verify this. Console.log. Now var1. Now let's log it after the deletion. Here we will see 100. Here, here we will see 100. This will delete the property from the full object. Then in here we will see undefined. Let's try it. Oh, sorry. We should be using var2, not var1. Sorry. Let's remove these var1. Let's clear. Let's bring this down. So we see it here. Initially it logs 100, then after the deletion it logs undefined. So you see that the delete operator works on the object created, or the object instance created from a function class, like when the function is being used as a class in this case. Now, so it removes this. Now note, this delete does not delete this from the function. It does not. It just removes it from the object, because whenever we do this, the full object simply is like this. It's simply like this. So this is a representation of this line 7. So var2 becomes a property of this. So it deletes that. Now, if we create two objects from the same class, like let me say full object 2 from the same class. Now, the delete the delete keyword or the delete operation only affects that class. For example, we have the var2 here, which is will be 100. var2 here also is 100. If we delete var2 on the full object, it does not affect the one in the full object, in this object. So let's try. Let's, for example, let's see this full object var2. Now this deletes the var2 property from the full object. It does not affect the var2 property on full object 2. So let's verify it. Let's come here and console log from and also console log from the one from full object 2. Now you see it. The one from full object is gone, but the one from full object 2 is still there. It does not delete it at all. It is still there. That's how the delete operator works. Now let me remove all this There's one other thing we need to note. Now here, let's uncomment this. Now here, this defines a variable var2, and also we also define the same variable var2, but in this case using the prototype. Now when we use an object of full and try to access var2 like this, it will give us this. It will give us 100, because this takes precedence over any property, over the same property defined using the prototype. So whenever we do this, JavaScript forms a chain. It first accesses the one inside the object literal, or inside the one defined inside the full object. If it does not find it, it goes into the prototype object and searches for it. If it finds it, it returns the value of it. So now in this case, this var2 will return 100. we return 100. But if we delete the var2 and try to access it, it will return 200 because it does not find it here, and then it returns the one in the prototype. Now let's verify this. So here, let's encase this in console.log, or maybe I should just copy this console.log, paste it here, come here and add the ending. Now let's run it. Now we have this property var2 defined here and also defined via using the prototype object. Now when we construct an object from the full class or the full function in this case, uh, this takes precedence over this. Now if we did not define any var2 here and we try accessing it from the object, for example like this, what JavaScript does, it first looks at it here inside the full function. If it doesn't, it searches it in the prototype object. If it sees the property there, it returns the value. So for example, if we remove this, what will return here will be 100, will be 200. Yeah, because it will see it in a prototype object. But if we uncomment this and save it, it will return 100 because JavaScript will already see it there, so it will not bother going down to the prototype object to look for it. So here it will return object, it will return 100. Now when we use the delete keyword on it, it will delete the property here and also in the property chain, so that when we do something like this, it will not return 200, it will return undefined because the delete operator deletes from the prototype and also from the function body. So now let's verify this. So first also let's log it at the beginning, and now let's make sure everything is okay. Object new file to, so this will return 100, deletes the var2 and then logs it again. So you see it returns 100 here, but here it's undefined. So it deletes from the prototype and also from here, from the body of the function. So you see that the delete operator transcends down the object chain when removing a particular operator. Uh, so that's another thing we have to note on the delete operator. So coming again, and its function on static properties. Static properties. We cannot, the delete operator cannot remove static built-in operators of JavaScript APIs like array, math, object, date, etc. Like the math.api, math.api. This math.api returns uh, the pi constant in math, which is 3.14 something. So let's log it. It returns it. So when we run the delete operator on it, it does not delete it. It does not delete it from the math object. From math, it does not delete it. So it returns false. It can't delete it. You see, it returns false. It can't delete it because it is static and built-in property. So the delete operator does not work on built-in static properties. Now, the delete operator works on static properties that are not built in. For example, look at this our code here. We have a function, and now this we set a static property bar on full. So we can now actually do this. It will give us 90. So bar is now a static property. It can only be used from the function direct. It cannot be used from its object or its instant. Like for example, you do new full. So we cannot do something like this. Obj.byte. We cannot do something like that. It will give us undefined. So it only exists as a static operator. Now, the delete action works on the static property. Like for example, we can do this full dot bar. It will delete this bar property from the full function or class or function in this case. So after this line, if we want to access full dot bar, we will have undefined. Now let's verify this. Let's first log it here. Full dot bar. Here we'll have 90, but after that in this line 11, we'll have undefined. You see it? Here we have 90. Then after the delete action on it, it goes away and we have undefined day. Surprisingly, delete also works on an array, but in an array it leaves a hole in the array. Now let's look at it. Let's say we have an array of fruits. Fine, like this. Now in JavaScript, an object and an array are the same deep down during compilation. Now, an object is indexed base. No, an array is indexed base, but yet it is still the same with an object. For example, we can still represent this fruits array as an object like this. Oh, we're still using the same name. Zero apple. We can still. So this is basically a representation of this fruit array in an object, as an object. Sorry. Let's delete it. How? Now, let's look at if you want to access the value or an element in an array, we use an indexed based approach starting from 0 up until the last index there. The first index in an array starts from 0, so this apple we can find it by using the 0 index 0, 1, 2. So to access apple, we do something like this: fruit 0. So this returns the apple element in the fruits array. You understand now? It returns. So to return banana is still the same thing. So 0, 1, 2. Now, when accessing a property in an object, we can still use this similar indexed based approach. Let's see it again. Now let's create a fruit object. Yeah. See, in this case now, numbers are now used as properties. Numbers, zero is well is the property, while the string apple is the value. So this is still the same thing as what we are doing here. So, but in this case, we are using numbers to represent the properties, and we can still access it like we did with the fruits uh, array. Like for example, we did this zero. Now we can still use the same using the fruits approach. We can still do this. So we can see that now array is just an indexed based type of an object. So while if this is still the same, so now the delete operator can also work on an array, because this fruit now is an object and still used as an array index based approach. So also we can now use the delete on it, because now the zero or the zeros here are properties. So we can reference it also like this. We can reference, but JavaScript will not allow us. So we can also, if we enclose it like this, it works, and we can delete a fruit, an element, sorry, or a fruit here inside the fruit alley. So we can now attach, we can now do something like this. It removes this element and replaces it with an undefined value. So now let's log the fruits and let's run it. Now let's look at what it returns. It removes the apple and replaces it with an undefined, which in this case is an undefined. Is just like an empty. So using the delete operator on an array introduces holes in the array. Holes occurs when an element is removed and is replaced with undefined. We have a hole there. It still has the same length. It still has the same length. It does not reduce the length. It still has the same length. See, it's three. We still have three elements. So it removes it, but does not touch the length of the array. It does not remove like the apple or like this. It goes away and the length decreases. No, it just replaces the property or the index of that element with undefined. So therefore leaving a hole in the array. So when using delete operator on an array, we should be very careful, because it does not essentially remove the element from the from the array. It just replaces it with an undefined nature, leaving a hole there. So to remove an element from an array, we can easily use the splice method. We can use this the splice method, the reduce method, or filter out uh, the element and concat the remaining elements to a new array. So that's the best approach when removing an element from an array. So let's go back to the to our article and see it. So there we so you can see the representation of an array deep down in JavaScript, because JavaScript compiles down to what we have JS object. JS object is an object in C++ that is used to represent an object and also an array. So you can see they are basically the same deep down. They are basically the same deep down. The same way we reference an object is the same way we reference an array. And using delete on the array introduces hole in the array. So we should be very careful of it. So we have come to the end of our lesson understanding delete operator in JavaScript. So I urge you to try it out. All the chapters or all the sections here and what you have discussed so far using the delete operator on object. We're using it on configurable properties and non-configurable properties, and also using it on var const length delete, using it on functions, global scope, local scope, and also on non-existent properties, and finally on the prototype chain and on the array. So it's very good if you try it out. All the examples we use here, try it out and on your own so that you can master and really see how it works, and also have different examples of how you can test it to see how it works out. Thank you very much.